Hey everyone!
Hi guys.
We are so excited to be doing another episode this week, and we're going to be talking about some takeaways.
Yeah, we thought, we've talked a lot about different things that you can do, personal development tips, and we wanted to kind of share another side of that and actually talk about some things that we've struggled with on our own day-to-day things that we're trying to work on and accomplish that might be helpful to you guys as you're going through different struggles. You know, we have these goals and things we're trying to do, and it doesn't always go as smoothly as we would like, and so it's important that we assess and really look at the things that we're struggling with so then we can confront those and overcome those. And to be honest, the things that I've listed, I don't already have necessarily solved. And so even maybe if as we go through this, if you have any tips of how you've dealt with something, I'd love for you to comment and maybe you can give us some support on things that we're struggling with. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. So Megan, do you want to start out?
Yeah, we're all on a journey, and I love that this video series allows us to share the journey that we're on too, because we're definitely not perfect. So the first one I wanted to talk about is, and I think I mentioned this briefly in another video, is about actually last week in course correction. So I get monthly coaching for my business, and that time is really special and valuable to me because it helps to guide me along the path of where I need to be going next in my business. And something I had been struggling with was not reaching a goal that I wanted, and that is to promote within Armon. And one of the things that my coach was pushing me to do, pushing me in a way that I wanted her to, not because, I didn't tell her I didn't want that. I told her I want this. So she said, okay, if you want this, this is what you need to do, and you need to commit to doing this for 90 days. And something that I really took a note of is that I hadn't done that for 90 days consistently. And so I really committed to doing it 90 days consistently and really being committed to the process of different than I had previously. And so this is something that I have started to see different results now that I've been doing it and really listening to her advice. But one thing that's usually a struggle is, we hear somebody give us advice, and sorry if you hear a pitter pattering, that's Zan, he's running all around. When somebody gives you advice and you've asked them to give you course correction, and sometimes you just say, oh, well, I've got it handled, I've got it taken care of, and you don't really heed their advice. That can be a big issue, kind of like we were talking about last week in the formula, because then it's sort of like the definition of insanity, because you could be getting the same results and not changing anything. So that's something I've been really working on and leaning into, is really listening to, really taking it to heart and doing, being consistent to that process.
Yeah, I think being coachable is so important, and I like you mentioned, I think our ego can get in the way of, because we think we know the right way, or we think whoever's coaching us, whether that's a formal setting or just somebody mentioning something we could do better, we think that it's an attack on us and they're demeaning us in some way or whatever, and it can if you aren't receptive to it, it can hurt. And so I think we really do have to work on our mentality of being open to coaching. And Eric Thomas has a great video on this. I think if you just typed in, I think he just called it Be Coachable, or How to Be Coachable, and a really good one, you probably can find it on YouTube, where he talks about this, and he talks about how even people like Warren Buffett, who have attained these massive amounts of success, are humble and are willing to listen to other people and are always trying to be, you've heard, don't be the smartest person in the room. If you are, you're in the wrong room, because you want to surround yourself with people who have gone farther than you. And I mean, that's the very definition of a coach, is somebody who's achieved something or can bring a different perspective to you. And if we're really serious about growing in whatever area that is, we have to, you know, settle down our ego a little bit and be willing to listen to that feedback. And like you said, then the outcomes are, you are going to grow, you are going to get that success that you were looking for. And I think too, just if you're not coachable, you're not approachable. Because if you're putting up a sense of, oh, I already have it figured out and I don't really need help, then I think even people that are maybe looking to you as a mentor are going to be less willing to approach you because you're not vulnerable, you're not seeking help from others, and you're just kind of give off of a demeanor of, I already have it figured out.
Right. I mean, that's not going to be desirable.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that my violin teacher would talk about in high school a lot is like, you know, an ideal teaching situation is where the student is pulling the teacher along and not vice versa. Because if the teacher is having to pull the student along, then it's not really, like, the growth can't happen the same way. And ideally, obviously, you want both people working. But when the student really pulls the teacher along, it's like the growth can happen that much more quickly because they are committed to doing whatever the teacher asks them to do. They're motivated to do the things that they need to be doing.
Yeah.
So what is your takeaway, your first takeaway?
Well, I don't know. The first thing that I'm struggling with is, I feel like this is a confession booth, but
we're not gambling, but
is sleep. I think sleep, you know, I'm really into health and wellness and trying to eat the right things, try to exercise, and a huge component of that is the amount of, not just the amount of sleep you get, but the quality of sleep you get.
Right.
And that really the last few years has been a big struggle for me in two areas of getting the correct amount of sleep, and then when you are actually trying to sleep, actually falling asleep. And it's just really challenging at the end of a day when I feel like I've worked and I just want a little bit of time to myself or to relax, then to, instead of staying up and either watching Netflix or reading or working on one of my projects, it would probably be better to go to bed. But that pull is just so strong sometimes. And so getting the proper amount of sleep for me has been really challenging. Then the other part of that is actually then if I do go to sleep, I really struggle with falling asleep at times. And I think part of that, again, is not implementing a lot of good sleep strategy. As far as, you know, sometimes our bedroom is too hot for me. Sometimes there's too much light, even, you know, a light in the other room on the dishwasher or whatever is enough to throw me off. Or maybe I was watching on my phone, you know, and before, and then that just tends, I think it is somewhat, you know, personal dependent. But at least for me, if I'm, you know, scrolling through Twitter or on Instagram, whatever, then that really is, it's messing with your mind and making it activated instead of, you know, calming it down.
Yes.
And then your mind, at least my mind, just tends to race and race and race while I'm laying there, which is even more aggravating to me. And then I just can't go to sleep. So I think that's one of my biggest struggles right now. And this is, like, to be honest, I'm not really, I don't really have a solution. Some things I have tried to implement more is getting the light blocking glasses that help. Right. I think they're called the blue light blocking glasses that you can get on Amazon or wherever, that towards the end of the night, if you are going to be watching TV or on your computer or phone, it helps with the light intake to where you can help minimize that so you can go to bed easier. But I think for me, it's really just going to take more dedication and putting more intention on going to bed at a more reasonable hour, and maybe figuring out time during the day earlier where I can have that time to relax or decompress. Right. To where I'm not feeling like if I don't stay up for another hour or two, then I'm missing out on something, a part of my day. So it's probably more of a front scheduling issue that I need to be more diligent. Or
intentionality, maybe, you know. I don't know if you know this, but I have a PDF that I made where I share my top 10 sleep tips because I have so many sleep issues myself. But yeah, I think intentionality and having a plan is huge, and some of those practices, like they even say, like your environment, having routine. You know how we have like routine for putting kids to bed? Like the same really needs to be true for us. Like we need to have a routine going to bed too, ideally.
Yeah, at the same time too, like I agree, but like at the same time, if you think about back, you know, 50, 100 years ago, sometimes we make things so structured that it's like people went to bed when the lights, they couldn't see outside anymore. And so, you know, people went to bed when the sun went down. And
Okay.
I don't want to, there's a part of me, again, a part of me that like, we have all this technology and we have all these tools and you can structure all this time. And I feel like sometimes that's just a barrier as well, where it's just, how can we make things more simple where we don't have to implement all of these either technology tools or other tools to try to get us to do simple things. Even like saying sleep strategy, which I used a few minutes ago, seems strange to me that we would need a strategy to go to sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think even years ago they had routines. Maybe they wouldn't call it strategies, but I think they had routines. You know, like the ways that they went about their daily life, that was a routine. You think about a farmer, like talk about going to sleep when the sun goes down and then getting up maybe a little before the sun comes up, you know, that was their like that was their routine because they had to work the whole day, you know? So I don't know if they would maybe call it that, but, and we're also maybe not doing as labor intensive work as perhaps they would have in other times or different people. But, so I don't know if we can always like compare apples to apples there, but, I think that they stuck to structure and stuck to schedules, perhaps maybe even more than we do sometimes.
I guess
that was the nature of the beast.
I just think we can get so like, you know, I have to have a morning routine where I do these 5 things before I get out of bed. I have to do these, you know, 4 things at lunch. Then I have to do these 3 things after dinner. Then I have to do my sleep strategy in order to go to sleep, when it's like, no, you just need to go to bed. Like, you need to structure your day in a way that it's easy for you to go to sleep. You don't necessarily have to have 10 things every night that you do right before you go to bed, or take supplements every night before you go to bed, or do, you know, I think we can, because if you listen to a lot of different people and there are sleep, one reason that I'm even talking about this is sleep right now in the health space is really talked about a lot, and optimizing sleep.
Right.
I think we can get so, it's almost like the supplement industry where, oh, I have to take 5 supplements or I'm not going to be healthy, or I have to take these 10 supplements. Sometimes we just need to make it more simpler and easy to do, and not overwhelm ourselves with so many things that have to be done in order for us just to do something simple like go to bed at night.
Right. I mean, I think just finding a formula that works for you. I know I found a lot of different things that work for me, simple or complicated. You might look at my routine and think it's complicated, but for me, it's like what I do every night before I go to bed. So I think it just depends on the person and how they want to approach it.
Yeah.
Probably. But, so no takeaways on that. Just want to make it simple.
I mean, my takeaway is like you said, be more intentional with it and figure out my schedule in a better way that I can focus on going to sleep at a certain time. And maybe it is even having some kind of, like I said, there's some kind of reward or something that I can look forward to earlier in the day, so I don't feel like I have to have this extra hour before I go to sleep to myself, or to work on a certain project, to not feel like you're missing out if you don't stay up an extra hour or 2. Right. I think there has to be some kind of mechanism to get that habit started.
Like a habit pairing, like they talk about
Right.
in like Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Like where you pair a habit that you need to, like a new one, with something that you enjoy doing. So like if you, for example, do 1 push-up, then you eat 1 M&M or something like that, you know, that you're pairing 2 things together that you really like. Now, I mean, that might be counterintuitive, so maybe that's not a good thing. But you know what I mean? Like for every push-up you do, you get to spend however many minutes reading a book that you like or something like that. But, you know, pairing habits together and that making it more enjoyable by pairing it together with something you enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my second one that I've been really working on is goal setting. I mentioned my planner last week, and that goal planner, if you don't know about it, is Laura Casey's goal planner. It's from Cultivate What Matters. CultivateWhatMatters.com is where you can find it. And it is really pushed me to look at goals and get serious about them. And not just at the beginning of the month, at the end of the month, not just at the beginning of a season, but at the end of a season. There's all sorts of different times that we can be reevaluating our goals. And it doesn't mean, it's not just things like, I wanna run 100 miles or whatever. It's things that, like, things that we wanna get accomplished. What are some action steps? Really thinking through your life, being more intentional in your approach to life. And as I've been practicing this and doing this more often, I've been setting monthly, weekly, and daily goals and been tracking them, not just setting them and leaving them alone, but tracking them in this planner. And it has been incredible, the growth that I've seen. And one of the big things, if you've never read the book, The Slight Edge, it's incredible. And we both read it. I read it many times, and every time I get something new out of it. But he talks about how when you have a habit and you're like, it's almost like you're stacking it. And so one of the habits I wanted to create was make my bed every day. And that's been something that through tracking it and making it a priority in my goal setting, my daily goal setting, I've been able to make it a habit. And it's funny because when I first started out, it was like, oh man, I gotta make the bed. It's horrible. I don't want to have to like pull the sheet down from this one spot. And like, you know, there's all these like parts about it that seem frustrating, or it's the same thing over and over again, whatever. But then what he talks about is as you do something more and more, you start doing it on autopilot because it goes into your subconscious. And so it was crazy because like a week or so ago, I made the bed and I didn't even remember doing it. And I looked away and then looked back and I thought, oh, I need to make the bed. And I was like, oh no, it's already done. And so this has been really cool to see like my growth with just having daily goals and really implementing new habits and tracking it and making it happen instead of like, you know, I'd love to be the person that makes their bed every day. No, actually doing it, actually making it happen. And that's been really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's great. So my second area is distraction. So trying to minimize distractions that are getting in the way of what you're really trying to do is something that I definitely struggle with. I think especially with a lot of things that we do, or at least for me, what I'm trying to build with the Design Man or with my personal brand is on social media.
Right.
And so that can be a blessing or a curse because there's a lot of other stuff on social media. And especially I love sports. I love following the NFL and NBA. I love following the sports media, what's going on, who's being traded where. All of that is really, I really enjoy. I really enjoy listening to those podcasts as well. And the issue with that is, and the thing with distraction, a lot of it is not inherently bad. A lot of it is fine, and in moderation is fine. But the problem is it can balloon out of proportion. And so with the goals that I have, like I have to be really careful that I'm not devoting so much time to social media outside of the realm of what I'm working on that I can't get to the things I really want to focus on. And the other part of that is that it's way easier to scroll through Twitter and catch up on sports media as opposed to put in, you know, if I have a goal that I want to have, 20 comments on Twitter or 20 comments on Instagram to help grow my following, like that's a lot more labor intensive, and it's something I have to think about a lot more than just seeing what's going on following a game. So it's right there. It's easy. It doesn't take any kind of intellectual work to do, and so it's easy to do. It's a distraction. So really what I've tried to do recently, especially with the amount of time I'm spending on that, is instead of, I was realizing that, okay, I'm spending, like when I'm driving, when I'm working out, or when I drive Uber sometimes, or just driving places, whatever, walking our dog, I'm usually primarily listening to sports podcasts. And so I've changed that to listening to personal development podcasts or things of that nature, which I was listening to some before, but I wasn't listening to them as much. And what I've tried to tell myself is, choosing things that are supporting my ultimate goal. Where am I keeping that in focus of where I want to go, and is what I'm doing right now really going to lead me there? And so that's been a big help to change that habit of, instead of automatically going to the sports media or the sports podcast, switching to the personal development or health podcast or something that I'm trying to learn, has been probably the last month or so, a big shift And I think tying, again, we've talked about this on other episodes, but tying where are you wanting to go and are your actions right now leading you there?
Right.
And
That's
having an
huge.
honest introspection about that.
Right.
We can kind of kid ourselves sometimes and trick ourselves into thinking, oh, well,
Right.
this is, it's not bad. It's not going to hurt us. I'm just doing it this one time. I'm just, it's just 10
Right.
minutes. Well, 10 minutes turns into 20. And so that is something that has really helped me, at least on the distraction front.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I try to do some of that myself with, I love listening to certain podcasts, but sometimes I need to be listening to trainings, or I need to be doing other things and balancing those things. Like, yes, I can watch a little bit or listen to a little bit of some things that are enjoyable, but I can also do those other things and work that in there.
I think that's important. You kind of have to know your personality, because you don't want to just, if you do really get joy out of those other things, you don't want to say, I can't do them anymore.
Right.
But you have to be careful with the kind of personality you have. It's like, we've talked about this before too. If it's okay to have a little bit of ice cream, but it's not okay to have a whole gallon of ice cream. And so if you can handle having a gallon of ice cream in the freezer and only having it once a week, then great. I can't handle that usually. Well, it's just we've had one. Thankfully, I've been really good.
We have vanilla bean.
But yeah, I can't usually handle that. I can't handle having a plate of cookies on the counter and not touching it. And so the same way, I have to be very careful about the distractions of social media. And if I do 10 minutes, well, I'm going to usually maybe do 20. If I watch one show of Netflix, I want to watch 3 shows of Netflix.
Right.
So you have to be also aware of your personality and how you can handle those things. Like you said, but you do want to have a balance and not say I can't ever have any joy. I just have to be so focused on my development and my goals. That's not really the lifestyle that we want to promote.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so my last one is a big focus has been taking time to really allow for rest, or even for my mind to wander. This is really hard for me to do. It's a big struggle. I love getting things done and I love keeping busy, and there's always things to be done for me. I'm never ever bored. And so I have to remember time where I'm not doing anything, or where I'm laying down or I'm doing nothing is okay. It's welcomed. It's needed. And it's going to look different for everyone in every, depending on the season of life for you. But for me, this has been a big focus, and it's been something I'm really trying to be intentional about. Because what I found is I'll push myself really hard on one day, and then I spend a few days recovering. Instead of, I can get my work done, I can be diligent, but then I take some time to rest, or I make sure to have that time where I can recover or just let my mind wander.
Yeah, I think too, along those lines, the mind wandering, I think, knowing you, I think, you don't like silence very much. No, I hate silence. And so I think that's really important, though, that silence can be so valuable to us, and what listening to, whether that's through meditation or just thinking, I think sometimes we can hide from that silence, whether it's conscious or unconscious. I know a while ago I talked about one time when I was on a recent trip, and usually I have music or podcasts going, but I just turned it off for an hour or two, and so many ideas and thoughts came to my head that were really impactful and important to what I was doing and working on. And when we constantly have that stream of either TV or music or podcasts, we're silencing that voice, we're silencing those ideas, that creativity. And I think sometimes we're silencing them on purpose because we don't really want to listen to what we need, what our mind or what our conscious is telling us. And sometimes it's just habit. We're so used to getting information. And, for me, silence is I'm, a lot more comfortable in silence and seek it to some extent. Yeah. But I think regardless for your personality and my personality, there's still a lot of value we can take from that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something I'm continuing to work on. And for those of you who know me, I do not like silence. It's an issue.
And then, so for my last one, overwhelm, struggling with overwhelm, I think, so I have a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of, pots on the stove, whatever metaphor you want to use.
Pots on the stove.
Like there's a lot that I'm trying to do, whether it's my 9-to-5 job, whether it's, No More Some Days, whether it's my writing, whether it's the Design Man, whether it's working on my nutrition certification, whether it's other stuff. And so
a lot of other things.
There's things that I constantly want to be doing and working on,
right.
But at the same time that can be very overwhelming, and you can just think, oh, there's so much to do, I can't do any of it. I might as well just turn on Netflix instead. I might as well just zone out, run away. And so being overwhelmed is definitely a struggle. And I think there's different approaches, and again I think this kind of depends on your personality. Some people would say just focus on one,
right.
Put the others on the back burner until you've really given 110% on one. And then there's other people who would say no, as long as you're interested and curious about those,
right,
like you can balance those out. And so that's the approach I'm taking now, is trying to one thing, like how I've done my reading the last few years, is instead of focusing on one book and only reading it like an hour a day, I read 6 books at a time on different categories. So I have like health, personal development, biography, religious, and like a wild card or something. And so they're all books that I'm curious about, I'm interested in, and the topic is varying. So if I'm reading a biography that is somewhat interesting, but it gets dry, well, I know I don't have to read that for another hour. And the tendency would be to just not even read it at all, just set it aside and watch TV instead. I can go to, okay, now I've read that for 10 minutes, I'm going to pivot to a health one or a religious one.
Right.
And so the other cool thing about that approach that I like is, whether it's reading or different objectives, things that you're working on in different pots, if you will, can impact the other one. So if I'm working on something with the Design Man, but I'm working on something with my writing, well, those might impact each other, and I might make connections that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that creative process, I think, is really important and impactful. But the downside is you can be overwhelmed because you're working on so many different things at the same time.
Right. And I think for you and your particular personality, this approach is really good because, I know that your interests lie in so many different areas. And so this allows you to explore a lot of different areas without having to abandon a bunch to pursue one.
Right.
And for this time, it's been working. It may not be forever, but for this time, I think it's been good. And then, because I know we kind of had a lot of different discussions not that long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, like, I have all these interests, but I don't really know what to do. I don't really know where to go with all of them. And so you've slowly figured out ways to get involved with all these different things and pursue them in different ways. And I think it's really great.
And I think looking back at that time, I was letting the overwhelm get the best of me and just not moving forward and being frustrated with, I have all these interests, what should I do now? And instead of making, one step forward in each area or even, whatever, I was just letting that overwhelm get the best of me and not doing anything and making an excuse. And so I do think I've done better over like making progress in each. And it's interesting, maybe one of the reasons I even thought about this is I read a really quick book on Leonardo da Vinci. It was actually a book that we had growing up, and my mom gave it to us, and I was just reading through it. And the downside was, he had so many interests.
Yeah.
He was an architect, he was a strategist, he was a painter, sculptor, whatever. But he didn't really finish a lot of works. And that was even like people got frustrated with him back then because he would have all these grand plans and not finish a lot of it.
Yeah.
And so you have to be really, if that's your personality, you have to be really careful that you just don't leave everything half done and not ever finish something. So that's where, if you're going to go that route, I think you have to have people you're accountable to and can push you a little bit on those, because otherwise, you have a lot of cool ideas, you have a lot of passions, but you never really finish anything. So you have to have that awareness of, yes, there's some benefits to that approach, but there's also some downsides. So how do you mitigate the risk of those downsides?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you bring that up, because some personalities are like that, where they're interested in all these different things. Some personalities are just like focus so much on this one thing, and they're like, if I don't complete this, my life is over. And if I start, I should say, if I start a million other things and I don't complete any, my life is over. And I think like you kind of have to have like the balance, like you said, like if you want to be involved in like a billion things, have somebody to kind of rein you in. If you want to only be involved in like one thing, then have somebody help you to kind of open up and see like it's okay to start a project and not finish it. But we don't want to only be, obviously, but like in that case, you need somebody to kind of guide you and be like, it's okay if you don't ever finish this, or it's okay if you just get this started, or you just explore this for a moment. You know, you kind of have to have that, I think, that guidance depending on what your personality is like.
Yeah, and that exploration can benefit your main project.
Yeah, exactly. Like we talked about so many other times.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
This has been fun. We just wanted to put together an episode where we were just talking about some things that we're learning, we're, you know, struggling with. Like I said, we're all works in progress, so.
Yeah, and if you have something that you're struggling with now that you feel like you've hit a roadblock, if you want to drop it in the comments, maybe other people and us can drop some tips and start a conversation there.
Absolutely.
And like Megan said at the beginning, we're just, you know, we're on this journey. There's going to be struggles. We want to share those with you guys because there's things we're dealing with, you know, every day that aren't perfect, and they're all part of that journey that we're on.
Absolutely. And please subscribe on YouTube to our channel. It's No More Some Days, and share it with your friends. Also, we are on Instagram, so follow us at No More Some Days with a Z. And I've been posting on there every day, and we've been making sure that is providing some really great content on the daily for you guys. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of the weekend.